Have you ever wondered how the Battle of Yorktown unfolded? Picture this. It's the 18th century, a time of revolutionary fervor. The American Continental Army, commanded by the persistent General George Washington, stands in defiance against the mighty British Army, led by the formidable General Lord Charles Cornwallis. The air is thick with tension and the stage is set at Yorktown, a strategic location on the Virginia Peninsula. Yorktown, with its proximity to the sea, is vital for control, making it a perfect chessboard for this historical game of power. Washington, with his French allies, devises a cunning plan. They intend to trap Cornwallis and his troops, cutting off their escape routes both by land and sea. The plan is audacious, risky, but if successful, it could turn the tide of the Revolutionary War in favor of the Americans. With the stage set and the armies in position, the Battle of Yorktown was about to commence. The clock was ticking. On the 28th of September 1781, the siege of Yorktown began. The Continental Army, under the leadership of General George Washington, had a strategy in place. Their goal was to encircle the British forces, commanded by General Charles Cornwallis. This was no easy task, but the American and French troops were determined to cut off any chance of escape for the British. An essential part of their plan was to construct what is known as a parallel. This was a military trench, designed to be a protective barrier for the American and French forces while they advanced closer to the enemy. Tirelessly, they worked under the cloak of night, their efforts lit only by the faint glow of lanterns. By the time dawn broke, they had successfully established their first parallel and had managed to capture the British outer defenses. The groundwork for the siege had been laid. Meanwhile, the French naval fleet had arrived. Led by Admiral de Grasse, the fleet took up positions at the mouth of Chesapeake Bay, effectively blocking any possible British retreat by sea. Cornwallis and his men were now truly trapped. There was no way out by land, and the sea route was heavily guarded. The stage was set for the pivotal clash that would decide the fate of the war. The British were trapped, and their situation was becoming desperate. The final act of the Battle of Yorktown was about to play out. The siege was escalating. The American and French forces had begun construction of the second parallel, an ingenious tactic to tighten the noose around the British Army. This second parallel was closer to the British redoubts and was instrumental in the impending decisive assault. Two main British redoubts, heavily fortified defensive structures, became the focal points of this assault. The courage and valor of Alexander Hamilton, who led one of these attacks, became the stuff of legends. Hamilton and his men faced the enemy head-on, capturing one of the redoubts in a daring night assault. This victory was significant. The redoubts were key to the British defense, and their loss was a heavy blow. But the British were not ready to yield. They made a desperate attempt to escape across the York River, hoping to break the siege and live to fight another day. But fate had other plans. A sudden storm disrupted their escape, forcing them to return to their encampments. Finally, on October 19, 1781, British General Cornwallis found himself cornered with no viable options left. His troops were exhausted, depleted, and morale was at an all-time low. He had no other choice but to surrender, marking the end of the Battle of Yorktown. In the face of overwhelming odds, Cornwallis had no choice but to accept defeat. The Battle of Yorktown marked a turning point in world history. This was not just an American victory, but a global game-changer. Here, the American Revolutionary War essentially found its end, halting major military operations. The surrender of British General Cornwallis's army signaled a shift in power and a monumental leap towards American independence. This battle was a catalyst for the Treaty of Paris, signed 2 years later in 1783. The treaty officially ended the Revolutionary War and recognized the United States as an independent nation. The ripple effects of this victory extended far beyond American soil. In Britain, it sparked political upheaval and led to the resignation of the Prime Minister, Lord North. Meanwhile, in France, the costly financial support provided to the American revolutionaries exacerbated existing economic issues, contributing to the onset of the French Revolution. And so, from the ashes of Yorktown, a new nation was born, forever changing the course of history.